I'm not sure what's next on the agenda. I think it might be introducing our guest speaker, which is Nicole Gill, to tell us all about her research projects. I can assure you she's really attractive, even though we can't see her picture. Over to you, Nick.
Hey guys, sorry my computer is playing up and you can't see me, but that doesn't matter because I'm not as interesting as my dog. So I'm going to bring up the screen of a PowerPoint presentation and hopefully my computer won't crash in a screaming heap. Let's see how this goes. Okay. We'll try and, oh, that's good. That seems to be working. All right. So it said on the agenda that I would be talking about my Masked Owl project. Now, I've had a lot of people ask about the dog and the crowdfunding process generally. So I'm giving you more or less all about my dog origin story. Apologies if it's a bit general, but because I'm so early on in my master's, I thought it would be good to sort of try and answer all of the different questions. So this is my project update for you guys. I'm working to train a dog to detect Tasmanian masked owl habitat. So it's me talking about Zorro, that little fluffy creature there that doesn't have wings. Just as a background for those of you who don't know me, a very long time ago, I did a science degree at UTAS, majoring in plant science and geography and enviro studies. I did my honours with Jamie Kirkpatrick, looking at weeds on beaches, which offered me so many opportunities to go swimming while ostensibly studying. After I did this, I got actual jobs. I worked as a native seed collector and then as a botanist. I did lots of random environmental consulting work, usually focused around field surveys. But I kept going back to weeds work in various capacities for state and local governments because that's where the money was, and I like to live in a house and eat regularly. I went to work at Biosecurity Tasmania, working on persecuting serrated tussock, which is a very bad grass. And that is where I met Dr. Sue Robinson. Sue, for those of you who don't know us, is the one cuddling Nui, the little furry creature there. This is us drinking wine on Big Green Island last year, looking for rats, which are fortunately not there. Sue's a seabird biologist, and she's a conservation dog handler who's worked all over the world with a variety of detection dogs and other animals. When I was working at Biosecurity, she was working with cat and rabbit detection dogs, and sometimes inexplicably let me go into the field with her. Her work, along with that of others working with conservation dogs, inspired me to write a book. So this book was called Animal Eco Warriors. It was about animals that work with people to solve environmental problems. And it was an excellent excuse for me to go on lots of adventures and meet lots of cool people like Maya and Roman. So I met lots of fantastic crew while I was writing this book, which was great, and got to know a lot more about the world of detection dogs. Inspired by similar stories, and I'm sad I don't have a picture of you, Mel Kelly, but you can just lean into the screen maybe later so people remember your lovely face. This is Fonzie, Mel's serrated tussock detection dog. So Melanie has been doing some dog training and learning to become a dog trainer, and we both hate weeds, and she was like, I should get a dog to find serrated tussock because it's a big problem where I come from. And so she did, and she has this amazing dog, Fonzie. Fonzie's trainer is Steve Austin, and he comes down to Tasmania periodically. And a while ago, while Steve was down and I was doing handler training with him, I told him I was keen on training a dog for orange hawkweed, which of course is what we're looking at this week up in Falls Creek. I work for Hobart City Council now, and we're the proud owner of the largest population of orange hawkweed in Australia. And I was like, Steve, I think I'm going to get a dog. I'd like to get one to train for orange hawkweed, like Miss E and then like Sally and Connor, who are now working in it. And I was like, what about a border collie? Because I've met, Maya the Wonder Dog, and she's fantastic and I love her. And Steve, of course, is like, Springer Spaniel would be better. So this is the excellent Jazz, one of Craig's dogs down on Phillip Island. And so I was like, well, what if I got like a Springer Spaniel Border Collie cross? And Steve was like, oh, that might be okay if the parents were working dogs. And these puppies were advertised on Gumtree. So I worked on my partner for a while to get approval to get a dog. It took a while, and eventually he caved, and these puppies turned up on Gumtree. So with the agreement of the owner, I drove to the north of Tasmania with DC, my partner, and we tested 9 of these 7-week-old Sprollies. So here they are. This is Zorro, my dog, is the second from the right. He's the fatty one. we did a bunch of different tests on the dogs. I'm sure all of you have different opinions and experiences of doing puppy testing, but we did a few to try and work out which of the puppies might be suitable conservation detection dogs. If anybody would like copies of the ones that we actually use, just email me after this and I'll send them through. The first one was a general puppy aptitude test. It's the sort of thing you can find in dog training for dummies. So it's based on the Volhard test, which divides dogs into 6 personality groupings. And we were looking for a dog that came up with mostly 3s. So the first puppy we tested was this little doofus. This is Zorro. We marked them all with red food dye, or with different colours of food dye, so we could tell the difference between them. He was red-yellow. He was the fatty of his litter, and he was very confident. We tested him, and we thought, wow, are they all going to be like this? Obviously they weren't. One of them was so uninterested in us that a piece of plastic rubbish under a bench was more compelling than we were. Another one took one look at us and went and hid under the tractor, and we had to drag it out. We ran all of the puppies through general puppy aptitude test, and of those 9 puppies, 3 of them looked pretty good. Those 3 we ran through the PAWS working dog evaluation, which is specifically designed for working dogs rather than pets, and it tests possessiveness, attention, willingness, and strength. Unlike the general puppy aptitude test, which helps people select pets, this is for working dogs. So all of the 3 dogs that we tested were just obviously adorable, but Zorro was the clear standout. Where the others wanted to snuggle, he was keen to chase the paper ball we threw and also brought it back to us, which none of the other puppies did. So I did a couple of other things that were pinched from something that has been put together by a lady who has trained assistance dogs in Australia. She has a modified test, and there are a couple of aspects of that I liked. One of them was the weird behaviour from random person test, where my partner just behaved like a bit of a sort of screaming weirdo to see what the puppies would do. And there was another one which was a concealed food test, where basically we gave the puppies access to something delicious and then stuck it under a Tupperware to see how hard they'd fight to get the food out from underneath it. Although the other puppies I tested were objectively cuter than Zorro, Zorro outscored them. Even though I didn't particularly want the pushy, greedy puppy, the numbers overruled my prejudices, and Zorro came home. So we picked him up when he was 9 weeks old and brought him home to be an orange hawkweed puppy. But then we ran into my friend Dee Stojanovic at the corner shop on the way home. And Dee was like, oh my God, he's so cute. Even though he's a revolting mammal, could we train him to find Marstall habitat? And I thought, oh yeah, sure, why not? That's more interesting than orange hawkweed. I always wanted to study animals, but didn't end up majoring in it at uni because I didn't like the animal testing at the time. So yeah, Zorro, his career changed and he is now focused on Tasmanian masked owls. So masked owls, for those of you who don't know, there's a subspecies in Tasmania. They're an endangered species. We don't really know how many of them there are. We don't even really know that much about their habitat requirements, and they're very hard to find. So they're nocturnal, they're quite cryptic, and call playback is a really unreliable method of finding them in the forests, which is what Adam Sistern, my friend and PhD student who's also part of the Difficult Birds research group, is studying. Adam does this thing that he's doing in the picture, except he walks around in the forest at night tripping over things and generally not finding owls. It sounds very depressing, but we're hoping that Zorro will be able to do a better job. Part of Adam's project is involved in comparing the efficiency of humans working to find masked owls using call playback to detection dogs sniffing out owl pellets. For those who aren't familiar with the disgusting habits of masked owls, they don't have any teeth, obviously, so they swallow their prey, small animals like bandicoots and sugar gliders, whole. They partially digest them and then they spew the remainder. The pellets, or some falconers call them castings, look a bit like a cat fur ball, but with extra bones and teeth. Here is a masked owl pellet. You don't see quite as many bones in it as you do some of them, but you can, if you look carefully behind it, see a Springer Spaniel Border Collie looking at it with great interest. Adam, as part of his PhD, has been talking to various conservation dog handlers, including a bunch of you, I think, about whether it would be possible to train a dog to help him with his masters after with his PhD. But once this became a potential research project, it seemed like a really good opportunity to turn it into a project where we could work with the University of the Sunshine Coast Protection and Conservation dog team. So Roman and Russ and all of the crew up there. But to do that, like Dee and I realised we needed to find a way to fund all of the expensive dog training and associated field expenses. So we went to the crowdfunding website. Now, Dee is really good at raising money via crowdfunding. He's one of the core members of the Difficult Birds Research Group at the School of the Environment Society, as am I now at ANU, and they've done a couple of super successful crowdfunding campaigns. Operation OBP was to try and stop the orange-bellied parrot from going extinct, and they raised more than double their target within about 5 minutes, it appeared. And then they did another campaign the year after that to raise money for Operation Possum Keeper Outer, which was basically it was developing a device that would close the door on nesting boxes to stop sugar gliders from eating baby swift parrots while they were sleeping. So we thought, you know, we've got an adorable puppy, we've got a charismatic endangered owl, how hard can raising 60 grand be? It was actually a lot harder than we thought it would be, because apparently owls are scary. We found this out retrospectively, that people don't like owls as much as we thought. They think they're a bit creepy and gross, and they're just not as desperately fundable as orange-bellied parrots, who might actually go extinct in the wild while I'm talking to you. So during the crowdfunding campaign, Dee and I had parallel mental breakdowns while it was underway because things weren't moving fast enough. Possible for any of you who haven't used it, if you don't hit your target, you don't get any of the money. So we were freaking out. So despite getting some really good media on the ABC, they didn't mention our crowdfunding campaign because of some ridiculous anti-capitalist ABC agenda. They're never getting exclusive from us ever again. But we were really scratching for funds. So Dee and I tweeted and social media like wild, desperate animals, as did many of our friends and supporters, some of whom gave us excellent prizes for crowdfunding campaign. Dee and Zorro even went and visited a school where my little friend Anna, who's fantastic, organised a fundraiser for the kids. They wore plain clothes and donated to the cause, and Zorro got patted by every child in the school. He was totally exhausted. Shortly before the crowdfunding campaign closed, Adam, who's doing the PhD and who's only just a little bit older than Dee or myself, was like, oh, should I tell people about the crowdfunding campaign? How do I share it on Facebook? And we almost strangled him. But somehow we scraped over the line and then properly collapsed in an exhausted heap. And then the difficult bit of Zorro began. Zorro was a puppy and obviously very annoying and adorable at the same time, and he busied himself, you know, with general puppy things, eating things he shouldn't, a particular focus on gardening and my partner's shoes. So we worked to, you know, divert his energies elsewhere. So I did a bit of a shady deal in the local K&D car park and got some owl pellets and started introducing him to the pellets when he was about 13 weeks old, first in a plastic Tupperware and then in bricks, and then in a specially designed 4-tin setup made by my partner with 5 shortbread tins now. You can sort of see them in the background of that photo. Zorro's enthusiasm for finding pellets for treats was exceeded only by his enthusiasm for raiding my cat's litter tray and for chomping on recently emptied flower pots. But I kept working with him with input from random friends, dog trainers and passers-by. We went to puppy school. He picked stuff up quickly, but he was so excited to be with other dogs, he was actually a bit of a menace there. I had a bit of a freak out about his progress when he started chasing swallows at the local park. But then Emma came down to Tassie with a bunch of the rest of you for the wildlife conference. And you all made me feel better about my half-hunting dog wanting to chase things. And that it could be fixed. So eventually in December, we got what looked like the almost go-ahead for my enrolment. Whoops. Hang on, what happened there? Whoops. At ANU. So I finally booked flights to the Sunshine Coast to do some assessment and training with the Detection Dogs for Conservation mob. I've been trying to enrol at ANU for several months by this stage, and I just couldn't believe the amount of administrative you have to wade through to become an actual student, but I've since learned this is a standard feature of all modern universities. The delay in getting enrolled, it took me about 6 months, meant that I couldn't get Zorro up to see Russ and Roman for training as early as I would have liked, and as such I spent a fair bit of time freaking out that I was ruining my dog and that he was missing out on important things. But when I finally made it to Queensland, we felt a lot better. So here you can see Russ ching the dog crowd with his magic tennis ball. So there's Maya on the left, and then my dog Zorro, and then Baxter and Charlie, who are all very good puppies. Unfortunately, we arrived in the peak of summer and it was really hot and we couldn't do very much except lie around in the pool or whinging about the heat. In my case, Zorro in the pool from about 10 till 3. But before and after it got hot, we did lots of training with Russell and the other USC dogs. So Zorro did, he was very enthusiastic about chasing tennis balls and sniffing koala scat, which we used because we didn't want him to eat the precious owl vomit. Russell Miller, who is featured in that picture with Charlie and Zorro, and Roman were happy for him to train with koala poo, as they were confident he'd be able to switch his skills back to owl pellets once he'd stopped wanting to munch on the target scent. The first test that they do to see if a dog might be a good detection dog is that Russ puts the dogs through is he chucks a tennis ball into their somewhat overgrown mosquito-infested weed patch in the back of the yard. All of Queensland is like this. This is no judgment on your garden, guys. It's to see how hard the dog will look for the tennis ball. So Zorro leapt into the weed jungle like a deranged kangaroo and happily and repeatedly went hunting tennis balls. So this was good. Russell was pleased and I was pleased. Zorro was just stoked to be chasing the tennis ball. He then moved on to koala scats in jars, like the one that you can see just there. This is all fairly basic dog training stuff for most of you. I hope I'm not boring you. So, hiding jars, having the dog find them, putting out a bunch of jars, to make sure he was indicating on the target scent rather than the jar. We also did the very important chickens are boring training. That's Mildred. I call her Mildred, that chicken on the left, and she was a very important part of teaching Zorro that chickens were boring. We did a lot of sitting around with some chips and a drink at the end of the day, feeding the chickens, and sometimes Zorro eating the chicken food. So he learnt that he didn't have to chase chickens, even though they were exciting. We didn't quite get a chance to teach him not to chase Bruce the brush turkey, who lives in the backyard, who was very diligent about filling Russ and Roman's chook shed with nesting material. But, he was kind of asking for it, and he'll never see a brush turkey again in his life. It's okay. We had a great time in Queensland, but we were very relieved to get back to Tassie, despite the fact that half of Tasmania was on fire, to go for a swim and visit the beach. With regards to my masters, which I'm doing part-time with ANU and USC, I'm currently at the trying to read all of the things part of my master's degree, but we're also thinking about what sort of direction the research with Zorro and the master owls will take. One of the other USC dogs will also be involved in this research. We haven't decided which one. That will be up to Ross and Roman to work out which dog will be least distracted by master owls potentially in the Queensland environment. And we're committed to helping Adam compare the efficiency of detection dogs versus humans in finding the master owl habitat. My research may look at how search conditions affect the dog's efficiency in the field, and possibly developing some sort of semi-standardised search technique for searching for master owl habitat for pellets, something like the 30 trees thing that you do for koalas, possibly. We might also look at what aspect of the owl pellets the dog's actively scenting. Is it something in the digestive juices of the owl, or is it more to do with the prey items that have been partially processed? It's all pretty up in the air at the moment. Zorro's still only 10 months old, so we still have a long way to go, but hopefully we'll manage to get him up to speed this year and start to do some of our initial research work. In the year, we'll be focusing on not eating the delicious owl pellets and not chasing the very exciting swallows. Yeah, that's pretty much where I've been at. I hope that wasn't too basic. Does anyone have any questions? That was pretty much just talk about.
Did you see Nick the tweet on Zorro from USC?
Did I see the which?
The tweet?
Yes, I did. Yes, my puppy, the media tart. I did see him. Although, yes, I hope they ended up amending the video. They were talking about owl pellets and showing koala poo. I'm like, no, you can't do it. No, they're not the same thing.
Have a look. It's now definitely now informed.
Oh, excellent. I'm so stoked. That's fantastic. Yeah, excellent. So, yeah, that's it from me.